almost live on Facebook.
It's coming.
Here we go. We are live everywhere. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our first interview with an author. I'm Victoria Parker. I'm curator here at the Fenton History Center. And joining me tonight is Mike Johnson, who just wrote this excellent book, The History of the Jamestown Airport. I'm sure you're all here to hear about. So, Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. And Victoria, thank you so much for having me. And thanks to Fenton for putting this event on. So I'm Mike Johnson. I just completed this book, The History of the Jameson Airport, not too long ago. It's been in stores now for a few months, and it's been selling out everywhere. So it's been quite popular. So I'm really glad people are liking it, and I'm glad to be here to talk about it tonight.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear it's selling out. There are copies in the Fenton.
Yes, there are copies. There are copies there now, but yes. They are going fast.
Yes. So the Fenton History Center gift shop does have copies available. If anybody's desperately searching for one, but we've sold quite a few. So, how did you decide to start researching the Jamestown Airport?
So this goes back quite a while, but I've been slowly kind of collecting photos of the airport, and I was really trying to find some old airport diagrams of the different runway layout, because there was one more runway than there is now. So that's kind of what got me started on the journey of collecting stuff, and then I started kind of collecting photos here and there, and eventually got to the point where I had so many where I realized, I think a book needs to be done about this, because there's a lot of cool history here that no one has talked about before. There's no other book that I know of that is written about the Jamestown Airport. So I figured I better put it in paper, so that way everyone has a chance to experience it. So
that's great. So is there something that made you fall in love with airports and aviation, or?
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you my backstory. So my grandfather, he was on a pilot as a profession, but as a hobby. So he flew for quite a while. He actually had a Piper Super Cub. So he flew around that a lot. Also had a 152, and actually his photo is in the book with the 152, and then a Luscombe at one point. But so obviously then my dad got involved with aviation, because his dad was, and he also didn't do it professionally either, but he just kind of did it as a hobby, and then that's what kind of got me into it. And then I was one that kind of decided to bring it into a profession of sorts. So that's so yeah, that's kind of how I got into aviation. I started flying when I was in high school. I was 16 when I took my first flying lesson. I got my private pilot license when I was 17. So yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it, and then I've worked up all my ratings, and right now I'm a flight instructor up at the Jameson Airport. So
cool. I didn't actually know that.
Oh, you learned something new.
I should have done better research.
Oh, that's okay. So yeah, I'm a flight instructor up at the airport. I went to college at Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach, Florida, and I was actually went for air traffic control. But then when I came back from school, I just started working on the rest of my ratings. Got my commercial, got my CFI, got my multi-engine, got my double I, got my MEI. So that's kept me busy. But now I get to teach people how to fly, and I really enjoy that. So
that's great. So how long have you been working on this book?
Oh yeah, so I've been working on this book. It's been about 2 years kind of in the making, kind of like an on and off. Like I had the idea to do it. Actually, what really inspired me to do it is the Fenton History Center has a great series of books on the trolleys, the steamboats, and the hotels. I love those books. And I wish there was books on those on everything. So that's kind of what gave me the inspiration to do it. And so that's kind of what kind of got my mind kind of running about it. So, but I didn't really start kind of working really hard on it until last summer. That's kind of when I really said, okay, I'm doing the book. I'm going to sit down and actually write everything versus just collecting everything. But
yeah. So is there any major challenges you faced in this project, or?
A lot. Yeah, so probably the biggest part was finding photos. I have emailed so many people, and all around the country, even just people that used to live in Jamestown or were involved in the airport or in local or state government. Very few people ever got back to me, but I had a few people that were very helpful in helping me collect information, and the Fenton was a huge help because I reached out to you guys, and eventually it was found. You guys had a big box of stuff and some old scrapbooks. It was kind of hidden. It wasn't easy to find, but it was there. So I really appreciate everyone at the Fenton because I couldn't have done it without you guys. So so that was huge. And then also Ron. Up at the airport manager, Ron Ultimator, he actually had a big box of photos, mainly from the 60s and 70s, more so 70s. But the Fenton had some stuff going back prior, which is the only way that I was able to find a lot of this stuff. But photos was definitely the biggest challenge. And also just kind of some of the write-ups, because the Post Journal, unfortunately, is not searchable online. It is all on microfilm. That is something I wish we could change, because that would speed things up a lot. So that was also a big challenge, was going back and going through all the old Post Journal and was it the Evening Journal? Is that what it was called? And there was the Jamestown Sun. There were like, at one point there were 3 papers in Jamestown, so there was kind of a lot going on. But they're all on microfilm at the Prendergast Library. So if you're ever looking for old stuff, that's definitely the place to go for that stuff. But until they make it searchable, if we can make that happen. But so that was kind of the major roadblock, was photos and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Once having seen the book, it looks like you found quite a few.
Yeah, I got very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. I know from my end, while you were researching, I kept saying, "Do we have pictures? Do we have pictures?" So I spent some time looking for you also.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and thank you to Barb too there, because she's been great.
Yeah. This was interview with Barb's idea, so I thank her for that too. So did you learn anything surprising or unexpected in your research? You weren't.
Yeah. So obviously, as I said, the reason I started looking this up was for that third runway. So right now, the Jameson Airport, you can kind of see, I have it behind me here. It's actually mirrored. It's not correct. You can see the numbers are backwards, but we have the main runway here, and then we have the crossing runway that kind of goes through me. There's actually a third runway that kind of ran north to south, kind of presently where Taxiway Foxtrot is, or off of Turner Road. There's some buildings. That was pretty much where that third runway was. It was a very short runway. It was only 2,100 feet. So that was something that I didn't know was that short. I knew there was a runway there. I didn't know exactly where it was in relation to the airport. So that was something interesting, and also something cool, which I did not know, and I don't think a lot of people know, is so obviously there was Mohawk Airlines and there was Allegheny Airlines, kind of the 2 main airlines that were flying in here in that time period. I actually didn't know that they coexisted for a brief period between, I think it was 60 and 63, somewhere in there. We actually had 2 airlines operating out of Jamestown, and there were 3 gates for people catching different flights, whether it goes to Cleveland or Pittsburgh, or some went to Buffalo. So at one point it was really busy there. I mean, it's still going now a little bit, mainly with general aviation and business aviation, but at one point there were 2 airlines and 3 gates at the airport, which is kind of crazy to think about for a small town like Jamestown.
Yeah. So did COVID impact your research, or give you more time to work on it, or make it harder or anything?
Well, not really. Again, with work, we kind of stayed more busy because people had nothing to do this summer. So we everyone wanted to fly. So that and we weren't affected with any shutdowns or anything. So that kind of kept us really busy. So but no, that did not. But I did have some time during the kind of like November-ish, when the weather was really bad. I was able to sit down and really type a lot out, which that's the hardest part about writing the book. You have all these ideas, but then trying to put them onto paper is really difficult and stressful. So that was kind of the, I guess, COVID didn't really affect it, but weather kind of gave me more of an opportunity to work on it.
Well, that makes sense.
However, the Fenton was, because you guys were closed down for a little bit, I think there, right? So that kind of probably delayed it a little bit there, but
yeah. So we were able to keep working, but we weren't allowed to be here for a couple of months.
okay.
Just to make everything a little more complicated for everybody. Can we expect more airport books in the future? Or you?
Yes. So I am currently working on a book on the history of the Dunkirk Airport, which is obviously the other public airport in Chautauqua County. And actually it has a longer runway than Jamestown, which a lot of people don't know that. So I am working on that, and that I'm hoping to have that out by the end of the year. We'll see if I can rally. I've kind of gotten a little bit lazy on it right now with everything that's been going on.
Well, when you finish, we'd love to talk to you about it again, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, we'll do these again about Dunkirk, but Dunkirk's got some interesting stories too, and it's been great. My employer has been awesome with helping me with everything. His family, so it's the Nelbones, the Randy and Creaney Nelbone. They own Majestic Aviation that I work for, and they've been super helpful with me with everything. And the Nelbone family has been greatly involved with aviation, since after World War II. So they are definitely the people to talk to when it comes to aviation stuff around here. So it's been so helpful to have them as a resource for me. So thank you to all of them.
That's great. So, is there anything else you want to tell us about the book, or?
Yeah, so I'll let's talk a little bit about kind of some stories here about it, because I don't want to give away the whole book either, because it's a good read, but I'll just talk a little bit about some of the old history here. I got it pulled up here, and there's a lot of dates, so I'm kind of referencing my own writing here as I go. But so the first airport in the Jamestown area was actually at the Baker Street Airport, current site of Bergman Park. Most people kind of know it. There's a big sign there and everything like that. It's kind of cool. Now, when I say an airport, it was just an open field and people just landed in it. So, I mean, there wasn't paved runways. There were a couple hangars, but I mean, it was just an empty field. And that kind of ran until the late 20s. Then it kind of got to the point where some people in Jamestown thought, if we want to be taken seriously as a city, we have to have an actual airport. So some of the planning committee went out and they looked at different sites. They actually originally settled on building the whole airport at the Baker Street Airport in Bergman Park there. However, when the CAA, which is the precursor to the FAA, when they came to look at it, they said this is an awful site for an airport. There's no room for expansion. You got residential areas everywhere. I mean, it just was not a good spot for an airport. So what they did is keeps going off. So they looked at some other sites around the county, and they eventually settled on this big plot of land up on North Main Street, and they said this would be perfect for an airport. So they kind of they pitched it to the city. City shot it down. City wanted nothing to do with the airport, which is kind of a reoccurring theme. Is this the city did not want to spend the money on it, and which is I know it's kind of weird. Why wouldn't they want to? But you have to remember at the time, though, in the 20s. Majority of people didn't own cars yet. So why were they going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars? At that time, that was a lot of money on an airport when, some council members said, oh, it's just gonna be a playground for the rich. They didn't see the benefit of it from a commerce standpoint. So actually some private individuals, and actually, whenever you research local history, the same names always seem to come up. I'm sure you've noticed that, Victoria. It's like always these same people. So, there's Robert H. Jackson donated some money, Oscar Linnea, Sheldon, John H. Wright, he's also who the airport is named after. It's a little fun fact there, JHW. That's where that identifier comes from. And then Dr. Bladesdale, and then the Galloway family, and like Jameson Eldest, Jameson Drug Goods. There's a couple other names there, but it's kind of cool. All these names start popping up again, and they actually raised the money and bought the land privately, and started developing it. And then they actually were going to donate it to the city. Say here's the airport, take it. City still didn't want it, and it wasn't until during the Depression, the federal government was giving out huge grants to build infrastructure, and but they had to get the proposal in by a certain date. It was September 12th, 1935. So again, the Jameson Airport Incorporated, the group that bought it, wanted to donate to the city. They had a midnight vote, and they voted to approve it. And they were very apologetic when they voted for this airport. They even said, "We're not voting for the airport. We're just voting for the jobs that this is going to create." They actually were really worried about any blowback from this. So that's kind of, again, I never knew that story. And the only reason I was able to get this information was because there was an airport manager in the 50s. His name was Theodore Peck, and he kept impeccable records. Sorry for the pun, but he interviewed actually all these people, and he had transcripts of interviews with them. So that's the only way I know all this. Otherwise, this would have been lost. So I really appreciate what he did there back in the 50s, and he had the foresight to kind of preserve this. So then the airport pretty much stayed the same, with some minor improvements here and there. Of course, you have the drone story, which that you could do a whole lecture just on that. I'm sure you guys have done a couple events on that. If for people that don't know, we actually built drones at the Jameson Airport, at the current site of Jameson Advanced Products during World War II. They were remote controlled. They had a camera in them, and they would use them as kamikaze planes or to drop torpedoes. So that, again, by the book, there's a whole thing on it. You'll love it. But the airport pretty much stayed the same up until 57, because in 57, there was kind of the biggest expansion. Again, another fun fact, the airport has actually not changed lengthwise on either runway since 1957. The runway length is still the same from the 50s. So even with that tunnel that was constructed, the length of the actual runway is still how it was in 57. So that's just a little fun fact there. Obviously, the terminal's been moved and stuff like that, but it's the length of the runways are still the same. So and in the 50s, Lucille Wright was a huge what's what I'm looking for? A huge ambassador for the airport. She was on the airport commission and stuff like that. But if it wasn't for her, the airport would not be as nice as it is today. So she is very much thank you to her because she fought for the airport a lot, again against the city because the city never wanted to give it any money. So eventually the city got rid of it, gave it to the county in the 70s there, and they built the terminal building off of West Oak Hill Road and got rid of the one off of Route 60 there. So. But yeah, that's kind of the basic story. Obviously, you can get more into the nitty gritty in the book. Also, just a couple other fun facts about the airport here. Jamestown actually had an experimental instrument landing system at the airport that was installed in the early 60s. So the instrument landing system is what allows a pilot to land the plane with low visibility or low ceiling. So basically, it's a needle system, and you if you're left or right or whatever, and then if you're up or down, and you fly that pretty much all the way down. It was actually selected because we have pretty crappy weather here. Let's be honest, and it was selected as a perfect location to test this system out. So Jamestown what was used actually as a test bed for the instrument landing system, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the basic history. Obviously, my book goes into a lot more details. I get into Chautauqua Airlines and stuff like that, and then a couple other cool stories in there, and of course the present day, which there's a lot going on up there. Again, a common misconception is the airport is closed. It is not. It is very busy up there. We have a flight school. We have a mechanic shop. Our mechanic shop is people come from all over the country to go to the mechanics here. It's actually it's a maintenance destination. A flight school, we have a great growing flight school, and of course Luscombe Aircraft is now actually going to be building airplanes at the Jamestown Airport. So
wow. Actually, that brings me, we have a question on Facebook. Somebody asked if we could tell them more about manufacturing of planes at the airport and how many years they were building planes.
Well, so the first planes we ever built at the airport were the drones. That was the first time we ever built aircraft there. It was, Jamestown was picked because there was so much of skilled woodworking here for the furniture buildings. They thought, hey, this would be a perfect place to build some wood airplanes. Because remember, metal was in low supply during the war. So what they so they thought, well, we'll make them out of wood, and they used some metal tubing from bicycles to make the parts they had to make metal for the frame. So those were the first airplanes that were built here. Then we get into present day last year when Luscombe Aircraft Company relocated from California to Jamestown, And right now they're building parts over in the old Turner building, which is right off Turner Road. And so they're building parts right now, and they're going to be building aircraft there very shortly. So it's growing, which is great. So
Yeah, well, it's always great to hear about new things being built in Jamestown. So.
Yeah. Well, it's first time you could buy an airplane that was built. You could actually buy an airplane that was built in Jamestown. It's the drones you couldn't buy, but
yeah, that's really cool. Another question on Facebook says, are there military applications for blimps? Is that you know the answer to?
Well, I know that there were times when they did try using blimps for different types of military applications. Like I even saw one. I don't know if this was ever built. I don't think so. But they had like a blimp, and they had like a little docking station where a fighter plane would be docked, and the fighter plane could detach from the blimp and fly around. The problem with blimps is just they're so slow. They're just these giant floating targets, and they're kind of easy to hit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So unfortunately, the blimp thing has kind of gone away, which I don't get, because I think blimps are cool, but they're I guess a little too slow for practical purposes.
I guess I understand. I don't know if anybody has any more questions. If you're on Zoom, enter them in the chat or comment on Facebook.
Yeah, any questions about the airport? Any questions about aviation, flying, or anything? I got to be careful what I ask for, though. I might get.
Yeah. I also wanted to, real quick, like you said, the book is available in our gift shop. And I've also just made our new History in a Box Club activity kits for kids. This is our second one of the activity boxes, and this one is aviation themed. And thank you, Mike, for you wrote a summary of the Jamestown Airport for kids for us.
It was hard to shorten it down.
Yeah, so it's a nice,
very difficult.
A nice short kind of kid level history of the Jamestown Airport. So I do still have some of the first boxes available, but I have these new ones. I just got them out last week. So if you have kids or grandkids or something that might be interested, stop in and pick up your copy of the airport book and an aviation box. A question on Zoom. Somebody, I said, did you know that Air Force Two landed at the airport in the 70s with Vice President Bush on board?
Yeah, so actually in the book, I have a photo of it. I have a photo of it off on the taxiway, and they're loading him into a car. So there's a photo of that in the book. So that was really cool to see. I actually didn't know that. That was something I had never known that Air Force Two has landed here. Air Force One never has, but I guess Air Force Two got in here.
Yeah. Somebody else asking, what else are you willing to tell us about the drones?
Yes. Okay. So, well, there's lots to talk about with them. So, it was called the TDR-1. It was made by a company called American Aviation Corporation, and they were based out of the Jamestown Advanced Products building. The building is still there. You can still see the hangar door and everything. If you drive up 60, it's right up there on the left before you get up to the air to the runway lights. You'll see it, and it's a big building. So they built them in there. And what was interesting was everyone knew they were building planes there. A big misconception about this that I think local people fall into is they think that like the whole thing was like super top secret. Part of it was everyone knew they were building airplanes there. The people building the planes didn't know that they were going to be drones, though. They were just building these airplanes. Then they got moved over to the next building, and it was installed with all the remote control and the camera systems. So, which of course that was a top secret area. And actually, this wasn't even released, I think, until the 90s is when they finally declassified the information on it. And I think one of your researchers there found some videotape of it. That was like the first anyone had ever heard of these things. So, but basically how they worked is they were twin engine aircraft. Now they did have a cockpit, so that it could be flown to get to the mission site, and then the pilot could get out, and then they could remote control it. And actually, the test pilot was a guy named Warren Skelton, who was very involved with the airport also in the 50s, and he got to test fly them all. And actually, there's a story about they actually put rockets on it to help it take off faster, and only one side of the rocket fired, so he ended up going off into the trees. He survived, but apparently it was the one crash of one. But what would happen is the drone would take off, the landing gear would fall off because it's not going to land. It's going to dive into a ship. It's not coming back. So that's what would, it would reduce a lot of drag too by getting that gear off there. And they used it in a few missions in the Solomon Islands. It was somewhat successful. Again, this is in the 40s. We were doing remote control stuff, which is kind of crazy that they even did that. I mean, that's kind of stuff we talk about today. So I know they had a lot of technical snafus with making it work, but they made it work, and it had a couple successful missions. As for, there's only one remaining one. It's actually in the Naval Air Museum in Pensacola, Florida. As for the rest of them, there is a myth, and I'll say this is a myth. I'm not confirming this, but some people believe, because there's a handful that were unaccounted for, and they think that they are buried up on Route 60 there, on the hill. They could be. It's possible. It'd be fun to dig and find them, because it'd be cool to see.
Yeah, that would be a good archaeology project there.
Yeah, right. So, actually, the Lucille Wright Air Museum has some old parts from the aircraft. So if you're really interested in that, I would really get in touch with the Lucille Wright Air Museum. They have, I believe they have the landing gear, and they have, I think they have a horizontal stabilizer from it, which is the part of the tail section.
Good to know. Somebody asked if the sheriff's office has their old helicopters up at the airport. Do they use them?
So I know there was some local controversy about that a while ago, but as of a year or two ago, there was a sheriff's helicopter in one of the old buildings up there. The old AVM hangar from American Voting Machines. They had a private hangar up there, and the sheriff's helicopter was in there, but it was in disrepair, and it was unairworthy for I think a long list of reasons. I know the sheriff's department was using Starflight a little bit. They were kind of sharing the helicopter there, but then of course Starflight's gone, and now it's Stat Medevac. That's that chopper that's always flying over. So and Stat Medevac is based out of, well, mainly they're part of UPMC kind of, so they're mainly out of Hammond, stuff like that. So they're here a lot, but I don't know if the sheriff's department does anything with them. That I don't know. But the actual sheriff's copter is no more. However, this is something cool though. It's not my book, but when I was doing research, I came across a sheriff's helicopter that we had that actually had floats on it, and they would land it on Chautauqua Lake. I actually have a photo of it on the water, which is pretty cool.
Cool. Somebody asked, what's your favorite plane to fly?
So my first lesson was in a Piper Super Cub. So that my answer will be a Piper Super Cub.
So now the airport, you said still busy.
Mm-hmm.
How many flights are coming and going normally?
So it's mainly general aviation or jets, like Cummins or something like that, or a business that comes in with stuff or deliver, some freight will come in there every once in a while, mainly for Cummins. But yeah, I don't know the exact number on flights, but there's people flying in there every day for something. So and of course in the summer, then it gets really busy with all the Chautauquans. So but yeah, it's all the if they're performing at the Salamanca Casino, they usually fly in there, or if they're going to the comedy festival, they fly in there. So every year or so, I'll get to see some cool celebrities, getting out of their planes at the airport, which is always cool. So
yeah, that's very cool. I didn't know how many people actually still flew into Jamestown.
Yeah, quite a bit. So now it's not an airline. There's no airline servicing it at the moment. So the terminal building is not really used. But the private terminal, which is what we call an FBO in aviation terms, is quite busy and people there every day. So,
oh, good. Now, is the Air Museum open?
I don't think they are right now because of they just moved into the Hotel Jamestown.
I hadn't heard.
Yeah, so they're in the Hotel Jamestown, but I do not believe they're open. I think that with COVID stuff, I think it was just too difficult for them because they're kind of in a smaller space. However, you can reach out to them online. John Watkins there or Gavin Swanson. They'll be happy to answer any questions you have, or I'm sure they'd even bring you in if you wanted to take a look around. So,
Yeah,
but
that's good to know.
but they were really helpful with this book too. So they had a few things and helped me out. And if you're very interested in drones, talk to Gavin Swanson at the Air Museum. He knows everything on the drone. So
good to know. Yeah, I was at the Air Museum a few years ago when they were in their last building, and it was a really great experience. I'm glad to hear they've got a new space.
Yeah, it's nice to have an Air Museum like that. It's nice to have Lucille Wright as represented like that. And just to give a little backstory on her quickly, not to take too much time, but so she was married to John H. Wright, who was the president of Jamestown Telephone Company, which became Altel. So she was a big pilot. She was friends with Amelia Earhart and stuff like that. So she was an early female aviator, which is awesome. So that's kind of her backstories. She was not originally from here. She was from Nebraska, I believe, and then she came here when she met her husband, and they settled here. But so JHW, that's John H. Wright. A lot of people think that somehow means Jamestown. They like, well, where's the H from? But no, it's John H. Wright. That's actually what it is. It's just the J and W are just coincidence and an identifier. But of course, now the airport is named for Robert H. Jackson as well. So it's the Robert H. Jackson Field, but the FAA identifier is still JHW. So.
Complicated.
Yeah. I'll try to turn this into a ground lesson here. So.
Somebody has asked if they've already purchased a book, if they can figure out a way to get it signed. Is that? Yeah.
I mean, if we maybe bring it to the Fenton, and I can sign it sometime, or I mean, whenever. So we can make that work.
Yeah, we should be able to make that work. I know there are copies available in the gift shop. I don't think we had you sign them though. If this wasn't COVID, I probably would have scheduled a book signing instead of an interview. So
yeah.
But yeah, if you
if you want to, go ahead.
Yeah, I was say if you want to either bring your book back to the Fenton or contact us. I'm sure we can arrange for Mike to come sign your book.
Yeah. Also, my email's in the book, and I'll tell it to everyone here. It's flychautauqua@gmail.com. So you can reach out to me, or if you want to stop by the airport, I'm there a lot. So that would also be a good place for me to sign it to there. So, but yeah, I'm more than happy to sign a book for anyone there. So
awesome. So I guess I don't know much personally about airports. So is the next similar sized airport, would that be Dunkirk?
Okay. So yeah, well, Dunkirk actually is a longer runway, but we actually have an instrument landing system here, while at Dunkirk they don't. So Jamestown's a little more accessible because of that, even though it's the longer runway up there. But yeah, so without getting too technical, so Jamestown is a controlled airport, though. We are in controlled airspace. Buffalo Approach controls traffic that goes in and out of Jamestown. And of course, obviously, Erie, Buffalo would kind of be the other closest ones. Then some smaller ones like Corey or Dart Field up in Mayville. So,
all right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I don't see any more questions.
Oh, come on, someone's got to stump me.
Yeah.
I was worried one of my pilot buddies was going to come on and just make it hard for me.
Making answer.
Yeah.
My phone's making noises. Let me see if it'll.
But I'll make if anyone's still watching out there. So if you do happen to have any old photos of the airport, I am very much interested in them. So please email them to me. I am really interested in any interior shots of the terminal. I know I bugged Victoria with that quite a bit, but I have all the photos. I cannot find a single photo inside the building. Don't know why. Huh. So no one took interior photos back then for some reason. But so if anyone has a photo of that, there's a restaurant upstairs. That's about all I know. I know kind of how the offices were laid out, but unfortunately I was never able to find an interior photo. I have multiple exterior shots, but never an inside photo. So if anyone has one, reach out to me, flychautauqua@gmail.com.
All right. So I did get a couple more questions
Yeah.
now. Somebody said in the late 60s, 70s, when the King of Sweden visited Jamestown, they heard he was diverted to Bradford.
Yeah.
They wondered if you'd heard that story or.
Yeah, so it's actually in the book. I talk about that. So the day he was trying to come in, I think it was in November, I think, but it was a really lousy day here in Jamestown, and our actual main runway, a 725, which is the big one, was closed because they were repaving it that month. Go figure. So, which that has the instrument landing system on it. So they were forced to go for the shorter runway, which doesn't have the landing system. And they tried multiple approaches to try to get in, but the weather just wasn't good enough. Now, if they could have used the big runway, they would have gotten in just fine. So, and actually the Viking Male Chorus was there. A friend of mine, the Jaegers, Mike and Donnie Jaeger, they were there waiting for the King of Sweden as part of the chorus there. But he got diverted to Bradford, and they drove him in a car to Jamestown. However, he did finally get into Jamestown in 2011. He was able to fly in here, so he finally did get to land here eventually. But yeah, so that the King of Sweden did attempt to land here. I heard he was not too happy either about being diverted.
Yeah, well, I understand that.
That's a bit of a drive. That's a bit of a drive from Bradford to Jamestown.
Somebody asked, was the Falconer Airport part of the Jamestown Airport?
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad someone brought that up, because the Falconer Airport is something I'd like to talk about. So it was never part of the Jamestown Airport. It was leased by I'm forgetting the guy's name. I forgot the guy's name that actually leased it, but it was actually currently where the elementary school is now in Falconer, kind of where the football field is there, and then the tennis courts. That was the Falconer Airport. And I actually found a couple of photos of it recently, which was really neat. But it was just a big field. There wasn't like a pavement or anything like that. But it was not part of Jamestown. It was just kind of a separate little airport where some people kept their planes, mainly just small stuff, like little Cubs or Taylor Crafts or Luscombe's or something like that. But no, that was apparently it was a pretty cool airport, but the approach was kind of difficult because you had the school that was there, the high school was still there, and then you had the mound basically approximately where 86 is now. I don't think 86 was there yet. It probably was some sort of a road, but apparently it was a very difficult approach to get in and out of there. But that lasted, I think it closed in 56. Oh, it was Einar Johnson was the guy that ran that, and he then moved to Warren, Pennsylvania. And he operated the Warren Airport, which is now Betts Park. Now, if you're familiar with Warren and all, Betts Park, the runway is still there where all the baseball fields are. So that's kind of cool, but right on the water. But so he left Falconer and then they went down to Warren.
Awesome. All right.
Any others?
To tell you that she's glad you went for this idea and then we could manage to do it.
well, Barb, thank you so much. Again, I couldn't have done it without you. I couldn't have done it without the Nullbones or any or a lot of people really. But I really appreciate all the help, because it was a daunting task. And if you're out there, join the Fenton, because they have a ton of resources. So get a membership, and if you're interested in local history, you can go in the research center and check stuff out. And the museum's awesome too. So please join the Fenton.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we'd love to see everybody.
yeah. Well, I've been to the Fenton before. I think when I was in there the first time, like I hadn't been in there since like a school field trip was the last time, and then I reached out to you guys, and you guys were really helpful with everything. So, but you guys have all kinds of records. I mean, it's really cool that if you have any old things you want to research, the Fenton's definitely the place. They have it all.
Yeah. Well, we certainly try to anyway. And somebody asked if the small airports are still going, such as Dart and Randolph.
So the Randolph Airport is owned by a private individual right now. I I don't know if there's any flying going on out of there. I would assume if it would depend on what the person's doing. My dad actually landed there when he was learning to fly a long time ago, but because it was public at one point. But as for a DART airport, yeah, they're still open. I have a friend that just landed there like a week or so ago, back when it was nice out. And they still do some glider stuff there, though. It's not as busy as it used to be with gliders. A lot of the gliders go down to Broken Straw Airport down in Pittsfield. That's kind of the big glider spot down there. So
I actually live right next door to the DART airport, so you fly right over my house when you.
Well, what's nice is they put in a new runway there, and it's really long. It's really nice because it used to just be those two runways off of 430 and that whatever road that other road is there, and it was kind of tricky with the power lines. But now there's a nice straight long one. So
yeah, if you fly in there, I'm sure you've flown right over top of my house.
Oh yeah, I'll try to keep the noise down.
Yeah, we used to get some that went so low they almost brushed the tops of the trees.
Well, there's some interesting characters that fly a DART. So
that's most of our questions.
Else? Let's see. Someone's asking me how they get in on the. Well, Paul Young, if you got in somehow, I hope you did. He texted me, how do I get in on this? I'm like, oh, just go on Facebook.
Yep, he commented on Facebook.
He did. Okay. So. Paul, hey, Paul.
So, yeah, well, I thank you for being willing to do this and talk about the airport with us. And thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for watching. Again, if you have any follow-up questions or anything, either my book will answer them, or if not, you can reach out to me at flyshotalko@gmail.com with any questions or photos. That'd be awesome. But
yeah, so hopefully maybe somebody has some photos, and we can look forward to a History of the Jamestown Airport Part 2 someday.
Yeah, I'd love to do a second edition at some point, but I need to find a lot more stuff for that. But that was, one last thing, not to keep it too long, but that was also one of the reasons why I made this book was I wanted to at least get the conversation going and I know someone somewhere in their attic has photos, more photos of this place. So I'm just trying to get them out here. So.
Yeah, I know when you started asking, we realized nobody had written about the airport yet.
Yeah, it kind of surprised me.
Yeah, so it's good. Somebody asked if there's any truth to the rumor of tunnels under the runways.
Tunnels under no, there's no tunnels under the runway. I have photos. There's one photo in the book of them paving the runway. There is the one tunnel on West Oak Hill Road, but the runway is actually. It doesn't go that far. That's just grass that goes that far. So and that was just built for runoff. But also something with Jameson Airport, we built about a mile long runway, about 5,300 feet, and there really isn't much more room for expansion without doing a major project of building land up in past Turner Road or down to 60 there, unfortunately. So it's we've kind of maxed out on space right now at Jamestown.
Somebody said they thought there was some houses demolished to expand the runway.
When they did that tunnel, there probably was. In 57, they might have moved. I do have a photo of them move. There was a house on the airport that they ended up moving. I don't know whose house it was, but I just have some photos of it. But it was just farmland originally, the main part of the airport. There were never really any houses on it. But when they expanded, I'm sure they probably had to move someone, but I don't know the specifics of that.
That makes sense.
Sounds like a chainsaw.
Yeah.
Or it's an airplane taking off in your backyard there.
I think they've passed. There's some kids in town with bikes that they've put chainsaw engines on, who are apparently having a lot of fun in our parking lot. So thank you. I think that's everybody. And thanks everybody for watching.
Yep, and thank you, Linda. That's a nice comment there about you flying out in the 60s and 70s, and that's awesome. Unfortunately, I was born in '93, so I didn't really get to fly out of James. I mean, a little bit. I think I took the flight to Dulles a couple times and to Cleveland, but I wish I could go back and see it in its heyday. But hopefully we'll have another airline in there soon. But for right now, you can still come up there and hang out, watch airplanes. It's still fun.
Cool. And it sounds like we can learn to fly too, right?
Yes. So I'm a flight instructor, and my company that I work for, Majestic Aviation, we offer full service flight training. So we've been pretty busy with it, and we have a lot of students and a handful of airplanes. So we've been really enjoying it. And so yeah, if you want to learn to fly, I just reach out to Majestic Aviation.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. I think we'll probably call it a night. And if you have more questions, like I said, send Mike an email or send me an email, and I can forward it to Mike. And
or comment on the post on Facebook, and I'll try to respond to anyone that comments with a question or anything like that. So that way everyone can see them. So that's probably a better way to do it.
Yes.
So
I'm hoping that as long as I click all the right buttons on Facebook, hopefully the recording will still be available. So if you know anybody that wants to see it and hasn't, it should be on Facebook later on. And thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.